WIBTA by not telling a guy I've been dating for a month that I'm having artificial insemination to be a single mother. Prior to the lockdown, I'd made the intentional choice to raise my children as a single parent. It took me 2 years to come to terms with this, and it required counseling as well as a rigorous approach to ensure that I was capable of doing it on my own. Despite the fact that I was in a wonderful place in my life, I had realized that my want to be a mother outweighed my desire to find a partner, which may or could not happen, and that my fertility was diminishing. I made the decision to move down this path as a single woman. After being affected by the pandemic at the same time that I was scheduled to undergo donor sperm artificial insemination, all of my operations were canceled. There was no indication as to when things may be able to resume. It took me a few days to get over the fact that I had been so mentally prepared for this, but I eventually pulled myself together and decided to abandon my plan. After all, I didn't have much of a choice. I signed up for a dating app out of curiosity, thinking that I would be able to contact with guys and see what happened, with no actual expectations of what would happen. So far, I've only been conversing with a guy, let's call him G, for approximately a month, so we're still in the early phases of our relationship. However, we've already met twice, with a third date arranged, and chatted on the phone numerous times, and I have a really positive impression of him overall. To be really honest, this is the first time in years that I've felt emotionally connected to a man, and it seems to be completely natural and hopeful. This was about the time when my clinic called me to inform me that they had obtained approval to open, and to inquire whether or not I would want to begin my treatment this month. So I said yes, since I wanted to be a mother more than anything else in the world, and I'm now on medication with my next visit planned for the following week. There is no guarantee that I will get pregnant on the first attempt, and as a result, I am conflicted about informing G about my intentions. On the one hand, we're still in the early phases of our relationship, and I'm concerned that I'm bringing up sensitive topics at an inappropriate time. On the other side, I'm interested to see what will transpire as time progresses. Am I merely delaying the inevitable at this point? What if I didn't tell him about something that was so essential in my life? Would it be dishonest of me? It was suggested to me by a friend that telling him about the pregnancy straight away may jeopardize a potential relationship with him. He added that a person who is really interested in me would accept me even if I'm pregnant, and that he would benefit from more time spent getting to know me. The only thing I'm worried about is whether or not I'll upset him by declaring unexpectedly, "Hey, I'm pregnant, by the way," to the group. We've spoken about the possibility of having children in the future, so I know he'd like to start a family, but it was just a casual comment on the subject. I'm also not willing to wait for a long-term relationship to begin, and we're both much too young to consider establishing a kid together at this point. WIBTA is avoiding public disclosure of its plan for the time being. Update. About a month ago, I inquired whether I was WBTA for not notifying a person I'd just begun seeing that I planned to become a single mother. I was afraid of losing him, but I also worried that if I didn't tell him, I'd be lying him, making the investment in our relationship unjust. The responses were almost unanimous in that I'm in and needed to tell him, which confirmed my resolve to go forward and be honest, no matter how frightened I was. I recounted how it had taken me 2 years to make this choice, how my fertility clinic had closed owing to COVID, and why I had returned to dating apps. I described how, after meeting him, my clinic had reopened and how vital it was to me to continue on my path to become a mother. I understood this was baggage he hadn't anticipated, and that there was a good possibility he'd leave the scenario. He didn't, of course. We're now in a serious relationship, and he's been there for me throughout my journey. I've had 2 failed artificial inseminations with donor sperm, my initial aim, and we've discussed having a kid together. As early as it may appear, he told me that my honesty made him think about his own future, and how he really wants to have a family someday, and how he admires me for being honest about my situation, and how he wants to help me fulfill my desire to be a mother. Whether with him or with donor sperm, either way, he wants to be a part of my life. I wanted to share this update since being labeled and had a good impact in that it forced me to do the right thing, which has resulted in me having the most understanding and accepting boyfriend. If I had hidden this information from him, it would have weighed heavily on my conscience and most likely made him distrustful of me. As a result, thank you. Edit. I had no idea this article would become viral in this manner. Thank you for your kind words of encouragement, as well as those of you who took the time to give food for thought on co-parenting and step-parenting. This is new ground for me, and I don't know anybody else in my daily life who has been in this circumstance, So hearing your thoughts and gaining fresh insights is really helpful to me. Thank you very much, Reddit community. Story 2. AITA for laughing after my sister implied my brother's girlfriend's dish wasn't good at Thanksgiving. The fact that my brother John, 26 male, surprised us on Thanksgiving with his new girlfriend Chelsea was a complete surprise to me, who is 27 years old and quite close to him. He was, however, really content, and, to be honest, that is all we want for him. As a result, we grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins decided to postpone any queries until a later date. Anyway, dinner time comes around, and we're all sitting around the table sharing everything, when my aunt takes me to one side and informs me that we're not going to be eating my mashed potatoes since Chelsea brought some and John requested that we serve them instead. I was a bit irritated, to be honest, since I've been making the mashed potatoes every Thanksgiving since I was 16 years old, but I got over it rather quickly. I couldn't have cared less as long as they were enjoyable. Unfortunate for you, they were not. Everything that could have gone wrong with those potatoes did go wrong, and it was a disaster. It turned out to be raisins. Her excitement was such that when she asked everyone whether they were doing well, she received a few MMHMMS in response. What I'm talking about is the type of smile you wear with your lips closed and an uncomfortable grin on your face. Because everything else was so delicious, her meal was the standout. We were all certain that we had passed the test until my nephew spat it out into a tissue. To lighten the situation, since we were all staring at him with our eyes wide open, she muttered something about not satisfying everyone, and my brother responded with, "I'm sure they're delighted to get a break from my potatoes anyhow," to which we all chuckled. "We are not," my sister, 22F, answered in the most monotonous voice I'd ever heard, and I couldn't stop myself from laughing. It was like a cackling all at once. Chelsea burst into tears, and the rest of the evening was awkward. My brother referred to me as an and is still upset with me. At it, my sister and I both expressed our regret. However, mine was limited to "I'm extremely sorry," and my sister went above and above. Update. First and foremost, I'd want to answer any questions or clear up any confusion. The raisins in question were the real kind, not the metaphorical variety. They were simply mashed into the mashed potatoes, and that was all. To be sure, my wife prepares a side salad since all of the traditional foods are reserved for intimate family members. No, my brother does not create anything and has never done so in the past. As of right now, Chelsea and John have been together for almost 1 month and a half. A ha was heard rather than a ha, and it was a pretty loud one at that. Okay, now for the meat of the story. John is still enraged with my sister and myself. I had a phone call with Chelsea the next day after I published the original piece. Although my first apology was sincere, I stated that I recognized that it did not come across that way, and that I was really sorry. I further said that I had absolutely no intention of hurting her sentiments in any way. The woman added that my brother had instructed her to bring the potatoes, which she questioned since she is aware with the typical Thanksgiving setup at our house. I wanted her to feel like she was a member of the family, he said, and that was enough explanation for him. She also expressed concern that none of us would be interested in her food, which she shared with my brother, who then requested that my aunt solely show her dish. Her story goes that she saw some kind of recipe online that used raisins and simply went for it. No, it had nothing to do with culture. She asked for some mash recommendations, and she was doing everything correctly with her technique. She just panicked when they started to burn, and she then added water, which I'm guessing is what caused the flavor to become off-putting. Afterwards, she added the raisins, which we both decided might be skipped in future potato dishes, hee. Chelsea and I are both doing well, and she will be joining us for Christmas dinner this year.